Haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis. Starting with Daf Nun Gimel Amud Aleph, 12 lines from the bottom. The Mishnah states that after the Kohen Gadol performs his avodah in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he returns in the same way that he came. Namely, he goes backwards. Ask the Gemara, Mena Hani Mili. From where do we know that he walks backwards, leaving the Kodesh HaKadoshim? What's the source? Omar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman Rabbi Yonasan Omar Kro. The pasuk states, "Vayavoy Shlomo lebama asher begivon Yerushalayim." Shlomo Melech, he came to the bama, the big altar that was in Givon, Yerushalayim. Ask the Gemara, "V'chima inyan Givon etzel Yerushalayim." What does Givon have to do with Yerushalayim? It's not next to each other, and therefore it should have said he left either Givon and Li Yerushalayim is going to Yerushalayim, or it should have stated that he came from Yerushalayim to go to Givon. Ella makish yitziyasa mi Givon li Yerushalayim. Rather, it comes to tikkun hekesh from the leaving of Givon to Yerushalayim, lebiyasoi mi Yerushalayim mi Givon, to the coming from Yerushalayim to Givon. Ma biyasa mi Yerushalayim le Givon, just as from leaving Yerushalayim to go to Givon. Ponav klape bama keder biyasoi, his face was towards the bama. As he was going towards Givon, towards the bama, af yitziyasoi mi Givon Yerushalayim, ponav klape bama keder biyasoi. So too, when he left Givon, he was walking backwards, his face was still towards the bama of Givon. In other words, as he was leaving, he was taking leave of the bama, he remained facing towards it. It doesn't mean he remained that way all the way until he got back to Yerushalayim. That's a far distance. But he left the bama to a certain distance. He was still watching, he was still looking and facing the bama. Only afterwards he turned about, walking towards Yerushalayim. V'chein, the Gemara points out, and similarly, when it comes to the avodah, kohanim ba'avodason, v'levim beduchnon v'yisrael b'ma'amodon, that the kohanim, when they took leave of their avodah, the levim, when they took leave of doing the shira, and the Yisraelim, when they took leave of their ma'amodon, when they were standing in watch for the korbanos tzibur, k'shei niftorin lo hayu machzim pneim b'holchim, when they would take leave of that avodah, they would not turn their faces and continue to walk. Rather, they would just turn their faces to the side, and then they would go. In other words, they would still be looking at the place that they came from. Similarly, when the Talmud, the students, he takes leave of his Rebbe, he would not turn his face when taking leave of his Rebbe. Rather, he would put his face towards the side as he was leaving. In other words, he would not then be mafne gav and turn around. That would be disrespectful to his Rebbe. Kihod Rabbi Elazar kad hava mifter minem Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara tells us Rabbi Elazar, the Talmud Rabbi Yochanan, when he would take leave of his Rebbe Yochanan, so kad hava boy Rabbi Yochanan saguya. If his Rebbe Rabbi Yochanan wanted to walk away from him, then have a gochin koi Rabbi Elazar aduchte adahave michse Rabbi Yochanan minei. Then Rabbi Elazar would bow down, wait until Rabbi Yochanan would walk and not be seen. He would be covered up, so to speak, michse, and he wouldn't see him any longer. Then, only then, Rabbi Elazar would turn his head and walk away. Or the other direction, if case Rabbi Elazar wanted to then walk away, then how would he walk away from his Rebbe Rabbi Yochanan? Because Morgan explains, "V'kad have a boy Rabbi Elazar l'seguye." When he wanted to walk, have a ozil la'achore ad demichse minei Rabbi Yochanan. He will walk backwards until he no longer then had seen Rabbi Yochanan. When he no longer sees Rabbi Yochanan, then he would then mafne gav, turn his back and continue his way. The Gemara tells over how Rava also respected his Rebbe in this fashion. Rava could have a mifter minei Rabbi Yosef. When Rava was taking leave of his Rebbe Rabbi Yosef, hava ozol achore ad de navgvon karei. he would take leave of his Rabbi Yosef, and he would walk backwards, and the Gemara tells even to the point where he bruised his feet, his legs. Umetavson askupto debe Rabbi Yosef dema, and his bruise sullied the threshold of the house of Rabbi Yosef with blood. On top of Nun Gimel Amud Beis. Now Rabbi Yosef was blind, so he didn't see the way that Rava was taking leave of him. Amru led Rabbi Yosef. The others told Rabbi Yosef, Hachi Avid Rav, this is how Rava is misnaheg when he leaves you and takes leave of you. Omar lei, when Rabbi Yosef heard that, he gave him a bracha. Yehi Rava ditoroim reishoch akula karako. He said, may your head be elevated to be the leader of the entire town. In other words, such a person who respects his Rebbe in such a great way, he should also be respected by the people of the town and be also elevated to the position of leader. The Gemara goes on to say that this hanhaga is true when we come to daven before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We will also take leave of the Melech by walking backwards. Omar Rabbi Alexandri, Omar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Hamispalel, Tzorech Sheyafsia, Sholosh Psiois La'acharov, Ve'achar Kach Yitein Shalom. When a person finishes davening before Hashem in the Amidah, he should take 3 steps back and then give Shalom, offer Shalom, so to speak, farewell to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Melech that he's been speaking to. Omar Lei, Rav Mordechai points out, Kivan sheposa shalosh psiyos la'acharov hasam iboyle lemekom. Once he takes those 3 steps back, then he shall remain in place. How long? So the poskim say until the point that he can walk Dalet Am, which was about 2 seconds. Mashal letalmid hanifta meraboy. There's a mashal of a talmid who takes leave of his Rebbe. If he immediately returns without remaining after he takes leave of his master, of his Rebbe, then it's as if he is now returning like a dog who is returning to his throw up. In other words, he's not careful, that he didn't really have in mind, intention, when he took leave of his Rebbe to do it in a respectful fashion, to the point where he immediately leaves that position, showing that he didn't really was not really aware that he was standing before his master. Tanya Mihal, we have a brayso also similar to this. Hamispalel tzorich sheyafsia sholosh psiyos la'acharov ve'achar כך yitein shalom. When a person davens, she should take 3 steps back and then give shalom. V'im lo yasa kein roi lo shelo hispalel. If he does not do so, then it's fitting as if he should not daven altogether, because he's not aware that he's standing before the Melech. Umishum Shmaya Amru. In the name of Shmaya, they said, Shenoisen Shalom liyamin v'achar kach lismol. That the way he then gives Shalom is first to the right and then to the left. Oiseh Shalom b'imroimav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu. Shenemar miyamino eish das lomoy. How do we know that the yamin comes first? He brings a pasuk, because from the right hand, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them a fiery Torah at Har Sinai. So it shows that the right has precedence, is stronger, is more chashuv. Vaymer, he brings another pasuk. Yipol mitzidcha elef. May 1,000 fall from your left side, urevova miminecha, and myriads from your right hand. Ask the Gemara, why did he bring 2 psukim? Mai va'omer, what was insufficient about the first pasuk of Mimino eish das lomoy? V'chitema orcha de milsahu the mesa biyamin. Because if you will say that the regular way of giving something, the person is normally right-handed, so he normally takes something that's in his right hand and gives it over. You might think that's an ordinary event, doesn't show us the chashivus of the right. Toshma, on that we bring a proof. The second pasuk, Yipol mitzidcha elef urvava minecha, that those thousands of your enemies fell on your left side, but myriads fell from your right hand. showing that the right hand is more chashuv, stronger and powerful than the left. Therefore, one then takes leave of the king after taking 3 steps back, and he then goes to the right and then to the left. Rava chazil Abaye. However, Rava saw Abaye the Yahiv Shlomo Lemina Bereisha, that he was first bowing down to the right and then to the left in that order. Omar Le Rava corrects him and he says, Mi Sarvis Niyamin Didech. Do you think that we're talking about your right being the first of the positioning? Lismol Didoch Ka Amino. I was talking about your left, the Have Yamino Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the right of Hashem. Since you're facing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so you have to then go to your left first, which is the right of Hashem, and then to your right. I witnessed that when Abaye and Rava would take leave of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Shmona Esrei, they would bow down and then, with a bowing down position, take their 3 steps back. Then go to the left, which is the right of Hashem, then to the right, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu, and in the middle, Al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. The latter part of the Mishnah states that when the Kohen Gadol is finished with his avodas haketoras in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he makes a short tefillah as not to then cause the people to be frightened. My matzli, the Gemara asks, what did he daven when he makes this short tefillah? Rava barav ade ve'ravim barav ade travayu mishmei de Rav Amrei. They said the following tefillah: Yehi ratzon milfonecha Hashem Elokeinu. May be your will, the will before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shetehei shana zu geshuma ushchuna. That this year shall be rainy and hot. Ask the Gemara: Shchuna mal yusahi. Hot is a maila that he should be davening for the heat. If it is hot, then it should be rainy to compensate for the great heat. Rav Yehuda, he completed the rest of the nusach of the tefillah, as explaining Lo Ya'ade Ovid Shultan Midbeis Yehuda. The Shultan, the power, the shlita, shultanus, rulership of the Reish Galusa should not leave the Reish Galusa from the base Yehuda, should remain from the Davidic dynasty of Yehuda. V'lo yeyu imach Yisrael tzrichin lefarnei zeh mizeh, and your people Klal Yisrael, again, v'lo yeyu amcha Yisrael tzrichin lefarnei zeh mizeh. Your people, Klal Yisrael, should not have to come on to each other for their parnasa. And the tefillah of those travelers should not enter and be accepted. In other words, when they ask that the rain should be stopped. The Gemara points out, Rabbi Nechanina ben Doisa hava ka'ozil be'orcha. The great Rabbi Nechanina ben Dosa, the big tzaddik, when he was traveling on his way, Shada mat mitra alei, the rain began falling upon him. Omar, he said, Ribono shel olam, kol ha'olam kula benachas v'chanina b'tzar. The whole world should be in a state of comfort, of nachas, and I should be b'tzar. While I'm traveling, it's raining on me, and therefore I don't have the proper coat and the proper way of protecting myself. Posach Mitra, it says that the rain stopped. Kiyosa lebeise, when he came to his house, Omar, he said, Ribono shel olam kol ha'olam kuloi b'tzar v'chanina benachas. Everybody should be in b'tzar except for me. I should be benachas. Osa Mitra. Then it began raining. Rav Yosi points out, Maya hanya leya tzeluse the kohen gadol legaber b'chanina ben doisa. He points out what is the effectiveness of the kohen gadol's tefillah in light of this tzaddik Rechina ben Doisa. When Rechina Doisa, he asks that it should temporarily stop the rain, HaKadosh Baruch Hu listens right away. Tonu Rabbanon. The Gemara brings a brisa in regard to the Kohen Gadol making a tefillah and requiring it to be short and not lengthen it. Ton Rabbanan Maisa b'Kohen Gadol echad sheherich b'tfilosoi. The Brisa brings a Maisa about a Kohen Gadol who lengthened his tefillah while he was in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So the Gemara goes on to say, "V'nimnu ha'echav ha'kohanim likonos acharov." The fellow Kohanim were concerned that something happened, because we know that there are many Kohanim Gedolim who then perished in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So they decided that they should go in towards the Kodesh HaKadoshim to seek out what's going on. They began to enter the Heichal, and he then came out. Amru loi, they said to him, why did you lengthen your tefillah? Omar lehem, he said to them, Koshe beinechem shispalati aleichem al beis hamikdash leyicharev. Is it difficult for you that I daven on your behalf, and that the beis hamikdash should not be destroyed? Amru loi, they said to him, Al tihi rogil la'asos kain. You shouldn't do this. Why? Sharei shaninu, because we learned lo haya marich betfilosoi kedei shelo lahavis es Yisrael. The Kohen Gadol should not lengthen his tefillah while in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, as not to frighten Klal Yisrael. The next Mishnah begins by telling us, as the previous Mishnah said, we're talking about Bayis Sheni, when there was no Aron HaKodesh. So we said that the Kohen Gadol goes to the place where the Aron HaKodesh was situated. Where is that place? Explains the Mishnah. Mishanital Aaron, when the Aaron was taken, Even Haisa Shom Mimos Nevim Rishonim. Then the Even was placed, was not placed, was theirs, was already there, but it was there from the time of the Nevim Rishonim, namely David HaMelech and Shmuel HaNovi. V'shtia Haisa Nikres, and its name was Shtia. It was called the Even Shtia, the foundation stone of the entire world. That means the whole world was really created from that stone. Gevoya min haaretz, sholosh etzbois. It had a height of 3 etzbois. Va'aleh haya noisein, and on that the Kohen Gadol placed the machta. Notol es hadam. Now the Mishnah describes the avodas hadam of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippurim. Notol es hadam mi shehaya memoris boy. The Kohen Gadol now takes the dam from the fellow Kohen who was busy stirring it. It shouldn't become coagulated in the meanwhile. V'nichnas l'makom shenichnas. He then enters the place where he was, namely the Kodesh HaKadoshim. V'omar b'makom she'omar. And he stands in the very place where he stood when he did the avodas haketoras. V'hizeh mimenu achas lamalo v'sheva lamato, and he sprinkles the dam 1 above and 7 below. V'lo haya miskamin lahazois lo lamala v'lo lamato ela kematzlif. He doesn't intend to sprinkle above, meaning above the aron or below it, down below. Ela kematzlif. Rather, kematzlif means that it should be closer each time that he makes his sprinkling, his throwing of the blood. And this is how he would count. Achas, 1 going above. Achas ve'achas, then starting the count from below. Achas u'shtayim, the second one. Achas v'sholosh, achas ve'arba, achas v'chamesh, achas v'shish, achas v'sheva. Al kan hazov shebehechal. He leaves, and he then places the kli that's holding the dam onto a base, a golden base in the heichal. Heviu lo esaseyer. Then they bring him the soyer. Shechot shachto v'kiba mizrak as damoy. Then he shechs the seyer, which is chatos laHashem, and he takes the blood after. And he's mekabel the dam in a mizrak, in another kli shores. Nichnas lemakom shenichnas ve'omad b'makom she'omad. He goes to the very place where he was before in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. V'hizeh mimenu achas lamala v'sheva lamata. Again, he sprinkled the same fashion as before, 1 above and 7 below, closer to him each time. V'kach haya moina, and each time he counts. and then he goes and begins to count. Achas, one, that's the one that's lamalo, and then achas ve'achas, beginning the counting of lamato. Achas v'shtayim v'chulei. Yatza v'nichal kan hazov hashen shebehechal. Then he places the mizrak of the blood on the base that is next to that which was there, which was next to the other mizrak hadam in the heichal. Rabbi Yehuda Omer lo hayasham ela kain echad bilvad. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there was only one base, not two. Notol dam hapar v'niach dam hasoyer, whereby he takes then the dam hapar and he replaces then with the mizrak of the soyer on the base, on the kan. Then he begins throwing the dam on the paroiches, on the outside of the kineged aron mibachutz, which is towards the aron. This is in the heichal. Achas lamala v'sheva lamata. Again, the same amounts, 1 above and 7 below. V'lo hayim miskavein v'chulei. As we said before, he does it like matzrif. And he counts again, 1 above, and then he begins counting for the ones lamata. Noto dam asoya v'hinech dam apar. Now he switches from the dam of the par that he was using when he then sprinkled on the paroiches, and now he switches it with the dam of the seir and does the same thing, sprinkling the blood on the paroiches. V'hiza mimenu al haparoiches sheneged ha'aron mibachutz achas lamala v'sheva lamata v'chulei. Again, the same procedure. He then pours the dam of the par into the mizrak where the dam hasoyer is in, and then he takes all of the dam that is now mixed together and he pours it into the first mizrak. Ad kan, the Mishnah.